Which leads me into, would you say this book or the other one like it really would you say this is your most influential book?
No, the book that made your world, because it was published by Thomas Nelson, acquired by HarperCollins.
Okay.
That has had bigger influence, particularly in German-speaking world, but it's also published in Finnish and Portuguese and Spanish, etc. So that book, because it has had the power of HarperCollins behind it,
okay,
it has had bigger impact. This came later, and this is to grow into a dozen books on the Bible's impact in creating the modern world. So we've just almost completed this second book. It's called How the Bible Created Modern India. So earlier I was writing alone, but now the teams are emerging that are studying the kind of things that Jordan Peterson discusses with me. 3 weeks ago I did another video with him, filming in Washington, D.C. in the Museum of the Bible. So the Daily Wire is bringing it out.
Yes, I think that's the one I sent out to Grace Legacy Builders people. No? Okay.
The one you sent out was, the Daily Wire one is not out yet.
Okay.
The one you sent out was a Zoom interview with Jordan Peterson, 1 hour, 47 minutes, which he also cut up in, his assistants cut up in different parts and had smaller parts. But the Daily Wire invested a lot of money, sent 15-member crew to the Museum of the Bible to film Keith Green, the hymn writer.
Oh, yeah.
And Jordan Peterson and myself in the Museum of the Bible. So this was real high tech. They had a lot of crew. So that should be coming in a week or two.
Okay. Now, we are starting a week from tomorrow, a week from today, it's Friday. We're going to read this book for our men's early morning Bible study, book on the Bible. So give us a 1-minute summary of why the men should come next week at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Well, if you want to know the ideas that created the modern world, modern America, modern Europe, that took us out of the Middle Ages, freed us from fatalism. The significance of when Paul is out preaching the gospel, healing the sick, establishing churches, he is rightly perceived as one who's turning the world upside down.
Oh, yeah.
A troublemaker.
Those men are here. The men who turn the world upside down.
What was he doing that changed the world? And particularly the chapters on, say, economics, that very few people, not even Adam Smith or David Landis, will say that the modern capitalism has a mother. This is Martin Luther's wife, Katie. She's the mother of modern capitalism. Everybody credits Luther, but that is because he was defending his wife. She was the one who was doing, transforming, creating modern capitalism.
I know she was very industrious, but tell me a little more about that. Because of her gardening, and she charged rent, a landlord?
She ran away from nunnery, hiding in a barrel.
Yes.
So she had absolutely nothing except her clothes.
Yeah.
She married Luther, who had nothing, a monk and a nun.
Right.
And Luther was a professor, but his salary was zero.
Okay.
He taught because he was ordered to teach. He didn't get paid. He got 8 guilders a year, not guilders, what was the Dutch coin? Like $8 a year from preaching in the city church in Wittenberg. So they had nothing, but because of his writings, critiquing celibacy, championing marriage, That God says it's not good for a man to be alone. Church said it is better for a man to be alone. So as he critiques and calls for marriage, monasteries become empty. So
Yes.
the Wittenberg monastery was given to him and Katie. Katie's first job as a wife was to throw out the only furniture he had, which was a mattress, because it was rotting at the bottom and it hadn't been overturned for years. So she threw it out. So they have nothing. How do you manage a big monastery with nothing? She turned it into a boarding. She was
Yes.
feeding 30, 40 people every day. She was and so she had 30 or so boys living with her, utilizing that manpower for gardening, animal husbandry. So her home was the second home, which was given permission to keep goats. And as she makes money, she would buy a plot of land, she would buy a second plot of land, she would build buildings,
Yes.
etc. She had a brewery. Even today, you can buy Martin Luther beer in Wittenberg.
I knew she did. She was a brewer. Yes.
Because there was no clean drinking water.
Right.
And the cows didn't produce enough milk for everyone. That was kept for the children and for the sick. So for giving clean, hygienic drink, there was beer being brewed.
Right.
So by 1540, Luther's owned more property in Wittenberg after the prince than any other citizen.
Wow.
Now, but this was a violation of their oath, because as monk and nun, they had taken the oath of poverty.
Yes.
So the boys who would eat her dinner then questioned Dr. Luther. That Dr. Luther, you took a vow of celibacy, you broke it. You took a vow of poverty and you broke it. You own more property than anybody else in Wittenberg.
Okay.
But it was all her doing. So he has to say that throughout the Middle Ages, the church had been wrong. There was many people who talked about reforms, but by reform, the reformers meant that the church should give away all the wealth, become poor, then you are spiritual. But he looked into the Bible, brought Jewish worldview, that no, God's blessing on Abraham, Isaac, Jacob is for them to multiply, be fruitful, to acquire wealth, and this is God's blessing. So he was the one who articulated in defense of his wife, which Adam Smith and others pick up, particularly Max Weber in Protestant Ethic and Spirit of Capitalism. He's crediting Luther. But what Luther is doing is studying the Bible in defense of his wife.
Good, yeah, and so much came out of their relationship, table talk, et cetera, and it's a big issue for Grace Legacy builders. I'm getting things across my desk, my computer, that's saying, teach families to eat together, teach families to sit down. In America, they think that the average family eats one meal a week, if not two. And if you watch television, it was always about the father with the family around the table. There's a show, and I don't mean to condemn it, but The Big Bang Theory. They have no table there. They sit around and eat without a table. But the table is the place where we have transmitted our values for hundreds and thousands of years. And it's interesting, other countries, not so much India, but the father will go eat in another room. And I say, no. And I'm not trying to push Western values. I'm trying to say that the Jewish family did always eat together, and that creates
but the book, of course, goes way beyond economics.
Yes.
It discusses why the USA became a nation and not an empire, and the impact of Holland in creating the USA as a nation. But it also has a very important chapter on the history of rule of law.
Yes.
Why Western nations, Protestant and to a degree Catholic nations also, have what Montesquieu called the spirit of the laws, while most nations have a spirit of lawlessness. It has a very important chapter on the history of tolerance, because not many people know that Europe, including European church, was very intolerant. But it is the Bible that brought tolerance.
Right.
So there are very important and unique chapters in the book which no theologians or church historian has written. Therefore, the book is picking up momentum, and it is selling. And once this new documentary with Jordan Peterson comes up, I expect that the book will really take a life of its own, even though it has not had a big publishing house behind it.
Well, of course, Father Sirico, our neighbor here, just a few blocks away, of the Acton Institute, that's their main staple, is the rule of law and land ownership. And they promote that all the time. And of course, so does 1 Kings 21, Naboth's Vineyard. We've studied that.
That chapter on the rule of law was given in Berlin in 2018 to lawyers, judges, and law professors from 34 European nations. 1 or 2 African and 1 Pakistani advocate was there, but mostly European nation. And so many of the law professors told me that we've been teaching law for 30 years. We've never heard this history of how the Bible transformed Europe into a continent which lives by the law.
Yeah, that's going to be great.